Point of No Return by Wildheart. Second chapter. Second transgression. Hello everybody! Lyra here. Time to talk about what this author wants to let us know about this dimension. LR and CR are respectively measures of time that he's made up for all the fix. LR is Luna's reign from 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. and CR, Celestia's reign, is from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. Thank you, and please enjoy the rest of your story. Twilight blinked, but the scenery didn't change. One moment, she'd been looking for some phantom danger she felt in the early afternoon in Ponyville, and the next, she was looking at a lamppost in the middle of the night. Its glow actually seemed to radiate warmth, which was welcome as it was slightly chilly. The lavender pony was suddenly hit with a wave of vertigo, and the ground seeming to grow further away. Even though her hooves were still touched, bringing a hoof to her mouth, Twilight's eyes went wide as nausea set in far too powerfully to resist, and the unicorn doubled over, vomiting. What was that? What time is it? She turned her gaze upward weakly, noticing the full moon at the apex of its climb into the sky. Midnight? But what? She suddenly came to full clarity as a thought struck her, adrenaline rushing through her body. Nyx! Where's Nyx? Is she okay? Looking around frantically, she saw the stall Nyx had begged for a sussy from was gone as well. Twilight's mind was far from sensical, and it began to form all manner of horrible ideas, ranging from Nyx being kidnapped and the unicorn somehow drugged. No! Twilight, calm down! Calm down. You're useless to her like this. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus on logic. The stall wasn't here because of how late it was. It made sense. It was nighttime after all, and the owner probably had taken his cart home and was asleep right now. And Sia had carefully discussed with Nyx what to do if they ever got separated. Go home and wait. She turned in the direction of her library and galloped off. This was certainly not cool. It was also not awesome, boss, or sweet. Staring at the ground in the general direction she lost her lunch, Rainbow Dash tried to come up with more ways to describe the situation of staring at a small splatter on the ground from a cloud. But honestly, there wasn't much there. Her mind wasn't quite right in gear right now. One moment, she'd been flying over the skies of Ponyville, trying to find a good cloud to nap on. And then, she'd been hit with a wicked case of the barf and trying to touch down. Now it was dark, and she had no clue what the hey, why! She mentally went over the event calendar she memorized, but there was nothing about a solar eclipse. And even if there was, this clearly wasn't one. She snatched up some of the cloud, stuffing it into her mouth to let the vapor wipe away the taste of bile, and considered her options. 1. She could just go back to her nap. This was option number 1 because it was clearly the least effort, and she was tired. 2. She could go back home and make sure she didn't miss something. This was way too much effort, as she always threw away any notifications of upcoming events once she received them, and going through trash was not something she wanted to do right now. Not to mention, if she had missed something, she likely wouldn't notice it now. 3. Find Twilight and ask her what the hell's going on. Dash peeked over the edge of her cloud, down at Ponyville. That was also effort, but not nearly as much, and she could always go back to her nap right after. Option 3 it was. Dash spread her wings out, flexing them. Then she glided a few hundred hooves before dropping into a dive. Twilight beheld her treehouse with a blank look. It's not that the house itself was really any different, though it seemed to have a few extra branches. In fact, it was more immaculate than she remembered. And there was the fact that there was never 2 lampposts in front of her house, set in perfect symmetry on either side of the door. The resulting warmth was very comforting, but it revealed the state of their home that had worried her before. Not even a speck of dust, not even a single smudge. The paint on the door perfect, not even showing a single sign of several crash landings and slams it had held up over the years. But the biggest difference was the statue of herself standing there near the door. It had a few fences around it, It seemed as though it was specifically placed to make it impossible to get into the home without use of magic. The position of the statue was her standing with a forehoof raised, her head turned a bit to the side as her eyes looked down the lane, a gentle smile on her face. It was as if a very large stone version of herself had just walked out of her home to face the day. Her eyes turned to the plaque on the statue's base. Her eyes went wide, the unicorn freezing up. She heard someone behind her, but she didn't react, even when it called out her name. Twilight! So, Night, what's up with that? Twilight? Whoa! Is that a statue of you? Rainbow Dash looked it over. They gave a shrug with her wings. I liked it better if it was doing something cool. But when did you get a statue of yourself? Didn't it take you for the... Dash slowly let the sentence drift away as he raised a brow at Twilight's horrified expression, which hadn't changed since Pegasus first sighted her. She followed her friend's gaze, looking down to the plaque. It was her turn to freeze, though she wasn't quite as in much shock. Twilight Sparkle, 923 to 946. Never again will there be a more magnificent friend, scholar, and mother. Twilight. Dash finally broke the silence with a surprisingly subdued voice. What in the name of Celestia is this? Finally, the unicorn snapped out of it, slowly looking up to her friend, her eyes misty with worry and fear. I don't know. I just don't know. You know, this still isn't breaking my theory that this is set in the Night Never Ended universe. Applejack was confined to quarters, was basically in her office. She said sorry to the zebra, of course, but Trixie had sentenced her to a day of house arrest. After all, she couldn't be allowed to get away with misbehavior any more than her subordinates. Bad for morale. The former farm pony really didn't mind that part. She didn't often leave this room anyway, and lying down on her cot had done her emotional and mental state some good. What she didn't like was that the impending doom of her entire resistance and easily over 200 Izzy ponies was asserting now. The fact that Trixie was sitting at her desk doing her work and only pausing now and then to glare at the orange filly over her shoulder didn't help. After the fifth such dirty look, she couldn't take any more. Look, Trixie, I'm sorry! Is that what you want from me? I'm sorry it came to this! I'm sorry I had to make this about Twilight, alright? Stop glaring at me like that! Trixie turned to the chair to deliver a stinging retort, but she took it down, taking a moment to calm herself. Her gaze softened at Applejack's calm expression, as she turned at the chair again, getting back to work. Oh, Applejack, it's not about that, really. Oh, sure, you may have taken my greatest opportunity of glory from me. You may have avoided years of training and a once-in-a-lifetime epiphany! Applejack rolled her eyes at the drama. But it is not why Trixie is upset. You got a real talent for cheering up ponies, you know that, Sugar Cube? She tried to smile, though. Trixie's lapse into her old speech patterns was cheering the least. So why are you mad at me now? Trixie closed her eyes and turned to the chair itself. The paperwork wasn't that important now. It was useless anyhow, in the face of this new development. Honestly, Applejack, it's me. You've put so much effort into this one plan, and I will admit, if it's not painfully obvious, I am still very sore about not being the focus point of it anymore. She bit her lip, looking down at the floor. Her silver hair fell forward, though it had been cut short to not get in the way while she trained. Over the years, she grew to realize such vanities would never be as important as her drive for more power. And it was that drive, she knew, that brought her to this state. I've been working so hard, so long. I've made so much progress. And yet, once again, I find myself playing second fiddle to that... She stuttered. Applejack sat up on the bed on her haunches and beckoned the magician to her. Trixie, always one for theatrics despite her growth as a pony, rushed to the farm filly's embrace. Her lover nuzzled her head, and the soft hair comforted Applejack as well. Sugar Cube, you're still important to me. You always will be, you hear? Applejack gave her a squeeze with her forelegs, and Trixie just nodded a little. I'll just... You'll know what's at stake here, and you're still not ready. The Earth Pony looked down to the side, and I don't know if I could possibly rescue like that anyhow. Trixie winced at the second statement. That was something she didn't want to hear. I'm not ready because we haven't gathered up the others. The elements of harmony will only work if we have a strong bond, and I can't accomplish that with just one of them. She looked up to the element of honesty. No matter how strong that one bond is. She struggled out of the orange pony's grasp and went back to her desk. Applejack staring at the floor. I wish I could get them all together again, but... Her eyes brightened, a wide grin forming in her face as a thought came to her. A wonderful thought, as she wanted to kick herself for not thinking of it sooner. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. Trixie blinked at that, so she didn't turn it around. What do you mean? You said it yourself. This is an unmitigated disaster! Now, hear me out. With Twilight and Ponyfield, what do you think's going to be the first place she goes? Trixie looked up to the ceiling, pondering for a moment. She didn't really know the least thing about the other unicorn, but she knew what most ponies would do. She'll go home, looking for Nyx. And Rainbow Dash, let's just say she's flying around, and all of a sudden it's now. What's the first thing she's gonna do? It blew under the blue unicorn, as he smiled brightly. She'll go see Twilight. Realize she doesn't see either, and they'll go find their friends. Applejack grinned. That's right, Sugar Cube. We just gotta worry about getting to them before Nightmare Moon does. She frowned, that grin not having lasted over her second thought. Or, Twilight decides to go try to talk her down. Horse apples! I didn't think about that. Trixie suddenly stood, fetching a leather jacket that once belonged to this world's Rainbow Dash, and slipping it on. It also belonged to this unicorn mare named Sunset Shimmer, but we don't talk about that. Where you going, Trixie? You can't be looking! The light blue unicorn turned to look at her lover. With an arrogant smirk that hadn't graced her features for almost a decade. I'm going after Twilight before she gets herself in a dungeon again! Her horn glowed, Applejack's eyes widening as he tried to leap off the bed, her hoof catching in a seat. Tumbling up to her hooves, she dived for the unicorn to stop her, only for both ponies to be caught in a teleportation spell and disappear into the night. Dash had gone through a window, while Twilight teleported herself inside the house. The furniture was all there, and while covered with seats, not a speck of dust showed. This place was very well cared for in her absence. The books were gone from the shelves, however, which ruined her ideas of how to figure out what was going on. The first thing she'd done was to run upstairs to see if Nyx was there. Anyway, not to the study. She knew the foal wouldn't be present, but even so, her heart fell when she saw the empty beds. Not even Spike was here. Her head hung, and she felt tears coming on, unable to stop herself from sobbing. The Pegasus watched darkly, not knowing what to do. She was no good at cheering anyone up, and Dash thought that Twilight might need some time to herself anyway. So she checked out the basement. It was totally bare, though so perfectly clean. The floor had even been treated to prevent erosion. Jeez! Who went through all this trouble? I know I wouldn't. She felt a slight pang of guilt at that, but shrugged it off. She remembered Twilight. That'd be enough, right? Whoever was doing this kind of restoration must be practically obsessed. Satisfied with her sparse inspection, Dash rushed back upstairs to check on the unicorn, who was wiping a tear from her eye. Dash? Don't worry, Twilight. We'll find her. We just gotta figure out what's going on here. I'll check my house. Twilight nodded, thinking for a moment. For her, nothing was more important than this. I'll talk to Rarity. Why Rarity? Twilight chuckled as she headed out the door. Because he's probably awake working on a dress right now. I saw a light on her house when I ran in here. Gotcha. I'll meet you back here if something happens. Got it! Twilight carefully floated herself down to the open window. Teleporting out of sight again would be too much effort. A dash took off, speeding up to the sky. You know, Twilight, I bet a pair of wings will have really helped that situation. The two wayward ponies popped into existence inside the Sweet Apple Acres orchard. Applejack finally fully connected with Trixie, sending them both tumbling into the dirt. They wound up against a tree, though, thankfully, they lost enough of the momentum to hurt themselves on it. Trixie put herself up, using her magic to dust the jacket off, then glared incredulously at the Earth Pony, whose eyes were pearlily spinning. "What? I put you in confinement!" As Applejack collected herself, she had to laugh. Of all the reasons that her being here was a horrible idea, even if unintended, that was probably the least urgent. Trixie harumphed and helped the Earth Pony up. "No use complaining about it now." She looked around curiously. "But my, this place has changed." Applejack sighed as she glanced about. The trees gave off a soft glow as they absorbed the moonlight. Wildheart's specialty. These plants not only lived under moonlight, they thrived. Sweet Apple Acres had met on a hard year the first harvest under Nightmare Moon's rule, but a massive effort by the Apple Clan had, and, in fact, all of Ponyville, made it ready for the next year. Thanks Celestia for the Apple Trust, huh? The harvest was late that year, even so, but it seemed as though it were perfectly fine now. "Oh yeah, it brings back memories. I don't really want to talk about it, though." Trixie gave her a soft nuzzle. "We'd better get going. It's for Luna's reign, but there's still most likely someone still awake." "Like Nightmare Moon's guards." Applejack nodded and collected her hat, giving it a few shakes to remove the dust, and tossed it on her head, the hat doing a neat flip before landing. Trixie smirked and shook her head. "I see. I'm not the only one here with a taste for flair." The farm filly sheepishly grinned, before the two of them set out towards Ponyville itself. "Perhaps you really should stay here, Applejack. It's secluded, and the last thing we need is for you to get captured." Applejack gave a shrug. "Well, he does this by as if you got caught, Sugar Cube. Besides, like you said, it's late. If we both get caught, we got a better chance of finding our way back together." The blue unicorn chuckled at her friend's bravado, shaking her head. "Believe me, the great and powerful Trixie is more than a match for a handful of guards by herself." "Even so, I'll feel much safer coming with you," Trixie sighed, but understood. This wasn't something the Earth Pony would budge on, and simply nodded her assent. Reaching the edge of the orchard, they dared to themselves, and took the path in. Rarity hummed to herself, a familiar tune that brought back both memories happy and sad. It would be the happy memories she would dwell on, however, as she could never be sad while working on a dress. Her blue eyes sparkled as she put the finishing touches on a seam, then lifted the fabric with a studious frown, checking it over for any imperfection at all. Satisfied with her work, she beamed again, getting an excited giggle, and laid it to the side. "And now for the next portion of the skirt." She generally had forgotten the flow of time, having no idea it was so late. The clock on her wall hadn't even received a cursory glance since dinner, and only meant to adjust a few stitches. But Rarity being Rarity, she had gotten lost in her work, and was already half finished with a dress that, when she had started, had merely been two connected sheets of fabric. A knock on the door shattered her concentration, just as she was positioning the cloth, and jumped, startled. Her eyes finally flew up to the clock, irises widening as she realized the time. 4:28 Luna's reign! She huffed, then gasped as she noticed her hose were being pulled forward towards slowly, into the sewing machine. No! But it was too late. The fabric already had been stitched to the device's own violation, and thus completely unfitting to her standards. The white unicorn fumed as her horn glowed, magic switching out the machine. She stood for the chair and tried to the door, prepared to give the one who would possibly dare to come to her door this late a proper, well-deserved tongue-lashing. But when she unlocked and threw open the door, she was quite surprised to find, standing there, a ghost. Perhaps a zombie. Either way, she screamed and fainted to the ground. Twilight blinked rapidly, surprised at the abruptness of that greeting. and shoved herself in to make sure Rarity was all right. A cursory glance revealed no bumps, bruises, or cuts, so she sighed in relief, lifting the other unicorn with her magic, and pushing the door closed with a hind hoof. I should have expected this. I have no idea where or when I am, but I'm supposed to be dead, apparently. Laying Rarity on her bed, she yawned to herself, feeling a bit tired from the day's events, cycle of panic and depression. She couldn't sleep yet, though. Rarity wouldn't be unconscious for long, and she needed answers. Little did she know that even as Applejack and Trixie were converging on her position, so was a stallion, stalking the night streets for reasons of his own. Twilight Dazz's entrance into the monument hadn't gone unnoticed. Chapter 3 Third Hearing. Applejack reflected on her life since leaving Ponyville. While the two rebels slipped quietly from shadow to shadow, trying to remain unseen and unheard. Reflection was not really something she did well, or often, but she couldn't stop the memories and thoughts from flowing. That's where I used to put my apple stall. Over there's where Trixie set up her first time here. Her thoughts turned to Trixie at that point, almost bumping into the unfortunate unicorn during her distraction. The former show pony cast a baleful glare at the near miss, and Applejack grinned savagely, but nothing was said. Trixie was a lot like Dash, whether either of them would have ever admitted to it. Trixie was more haughty, but no more arrogant. Maybe it was that total confidence she liked in both of them. Or maybe it was the fact that that very confidence was a fabrication to hide the fact there was none. To be fair, Trixie's boasting wasn't really empty. She had no qualms in backing up her words, even if she obviously couldn't. Bravado and an attempt to seem to be strong when she always felt weak. Dash had the same problem too, and honestly, over the years, and thanks to her repeated humiliations, Trixie had learned some humility that had made her about as easy to get along with as her deceased Pegasus friend. Applejack tried to hold back a tear, sniffing a bit louder than she meant to. The look she got this time was a reassuring smile. Trixie didn't know what the farm filly was thinking, but she knew just being here must be getting to her. Applejack was always so strong, and not taken to emotional weakness. But memories of that Rainbow Dash were something that hit her harder than she admit. She always said she was over it. Dash's death was something she dealt with. Now was not such a time for her thoughts, and even as she gave that smile, Trixie's head nodded to the side. Hurry now, the gesture conveyed. Applejack took a deep breath, steeled herself, and the two of them darted across a lamp-lit street to get to the small alley between the two buildings that happened to protrude into the street enough to make it a more desirable target than another opening. Twilight's home would be on that side, and it was better than just racing across the empty street in front of Ponyville's monument to the unicorn, which was probably always under guard. Living behind their target, Trixie looked it over with a discerning eye, while Applejack kept a lookout. Noticing a second-floor window open, she nodded at the farm there, whispering, They've been here. You think one of them's still here? Applejack felt a sudden chill, as he had the feeling it wasn't related to the cold that was making her breathe form small clouds in front of her muzzle. No, I don't. They must have already gone to one of their friends' houses. But which one? Trixie looked to her lover, not sure of which way they might go. She felt she should, but that was neither here nor there. Applejack looked at her head toward the dark sky. That's probably what gone right for her house after. It's not there no more, is it? Trixie shook her head. Another chill. Applejack looked around in the wide open space behind Twilight's house. I think we're being watched, Sugar Cube. She could see nothing, just empty blackness. However, a very slight movement made her gaze snap to a sudden streak of purple. Ah, great! She grit her teeth as she backed up, crouched low, ready for a track. Trixie, you'll need to find the others. The unicorn looked back to Applejack, gasping as he saw what Applejack had seen. A large black shape standing nearby, a bright purple mane flickering as a pair of hazel eyes glinted from the lamplight. Wildheart. Trixie nodded to Applejack without another word, and teleported to a safe distance. Anywhere was better than here. The colt strode forward, neutral frown on his muzzle. Wildheart had been described as living a wall of meat, as tall as Big Mac and built as powerfully. The black-coated, purple-maned stallion was huge. His cutie mark was that of a black lily with purple spots, a purple outline that matched his mane, differentiated from his coat. His dispassionate gaze conveyed a sense of superiority while he slowly approached. Applejack found herself trembling. Wildheart was an idiot, and pathetically childlike in his dedication to Nightmare Moon, but he was a very dangerous creature nonetheless. Her green eyes moved over his body, trying not to think about how easily he could probably stomp her into pace. However, the hoof-shaped scar over his cutie mark brought her courage, and reminded her that he beat him before, and she could do it again.
Applejack, how fortuitous. Surrender to mercy.
He didn't finish that statement before the earnest pony leapt forward, striking out with a hoof. The clumsily attempted to sidestep, but as lumbery as he was, the movement was too slow to fully avoid the incoming kick. He reeled a bit from the blow. The element of honesty sold her sore on the ability to fight. Her own disproportionate strength easily staggered him even with a glancing hit. Alzak didn't turn. She knew that wasn't enough to hurt the monster of an earth pony. So she kicked both legs out, aiming to connect the scar she once given him, to hit where it hurt. Wildheart let out a yelp of pain, stumbling, and his enemy grinned, preparing another buck. She'd been right to think that area was especially sensitive, even after healing. Before he could connect, however, Applejack felt something wrap around her waist and throw her back toward the wall of Twilight's home. It was a solid impact, but the farm filly had experienced worse. It was enough to stun her, however, and through her blurred vision, she saw a vine retracting to the earth. Wildheart darted forward, as he winced as he prepared for this oncoming assault, in the fruitless manner that one might try to throw their arms to block an oncoming train. The impact never came, and the farm mare opened her eyes to find herself flying, to her bewilderment. She looked at the ground below for a confused blink, then realized she was being held aloft, not simply floating. Her eyes widened. It was one thing to know that the spell had, in some way, worked. It was entirely something else to come face to case with some pony her mind and heart told her she was dead, someone she should forget. It was entirely something else to be held once again, even if the situation wasn't at all romantic in the slightest, by someone you once loved. And Applejack was rendered completely speechless as he found herself staring at Rainbow Dash, who was wincing at the weight in her arms, the weight of one shocked orange earth pony. Ugh! Applejack, what have you been eating? Celestia, you're heavy! After losing the line of sight of the enemy, far below behind a few clouds, she slid back down to Equestria, putting Applejack down and taking a few pants for breath. She grinned weakly at her friend, gasping out, Might want to lose a few pounds. Catching her breath, the Pegasus plopped onto her haunches and glanced in the direction of the library. Who the heck was that anyway? Applejack scowled. I'm not fight! I'm just stronger, and muscles got more to it than fight! The anger quickly turned to sadness, the farm filly biting her lip. Celestia, not now. Not the time for it. She looked back up and took a deep breath. Circle Cube, we really gotta talk. Wildheart didn't scowl. He honestly didn't care the resistance leader had slid through his hooves. That was less important by far than what he had just witnessed. It had only been a flash, one quick glance, but he knew what he saw.
My goodness must hear this immediately.
As he stared along the sky, trying to trace the flight trajectory for the third time, a small flower sprouted from the ground, then slowly grew larger and larger, until it dwarfed even the stallion. Giving up on his doomed attempts to figure out where the Pegasus would be landing, he turned to the blossoming plant, and stepped through a portal that seemed to replace the inside of its petals. Once he was through, the flower died, wilted, and turned to ash within seconds. Eternal night. Ugh. Twilight felt a shiver down her spine. When Rarity came to, she had to show the Fashionista she wasn't the living dead come to feast on her, obviously lovely, brains. After that, well, It hadn't been an entirely nice talk. Verity was very happy to see her, but Twilight wouldn't let her welcome properly. She needed to know what was going on. She did not like what she heard in the slightest. A world where she had died at the noose. Nyx not having the presence of mind to save her after her scathing words. Things gone downhill from there. Spell Nexus was the next victim of the noose for challenging his goddess one too many times. Das had been challenged to a race and died in the middle of it under very circumstances. Pinky was a recluse. Fluttershy refused to speak at all, except to Rarity. And to top it all off, Applejack had denounced everyone and laughed. See? Told you couldn't tell me it wasn't the night never ended. It was so much to take in. Twilight wasn't quite sure she could comprehend it. Tears began to form in her eyes. And Rarity frowned, gently wiping them away with a handkerchief.
Now, dear, it's not as all bad as it sounds. Sure, we may not have seen the sun in 5 years, or was it 6? I honestly can't recall.
Verity gave Twilight an apologetic smile that was more polite than sincere.
Well, in either case, it's not nearly been as terrible as we thought at first.
She offered Twilight the cloth, and the magician took it with her magic gratefully, staring at the floor, trying not to break it down.
Ponyville is still a rather nice place to live. In fact, thanks to the presence of Queen Nyx near us, we are the most desirable place to live now, aside from Canterlot. Ponyville has grown and prospered, and my career has become something to behold.
You still live here, though? Verity gave Twilight a hurt look, as if that had been a grave insult.
Oh, come now. Even with many of my dearest friends gone, I would never abandon Fluttershy to her own devices, and there's not much reason for me to leave in any case.
The white unicorn proudly brought her left foreleg to her chest, her head tossing back theatrically.
Ponyville is now the home of the truly talented! I, myself, even designed for our beloved queen and the highest rights officers!
Twilight found herself slightly disgusted at that, but questioned why she should judge Rarity found her dream, and she hadn't abandoned her friends. Perhaps it was the castle accepted of the way things are now.
I didn't suggest you would leave us, but your duty! What about protecting Equestria? We're the elements of harmony, Rarity, not just any pony!
Twilight leapt up, anger on her face, tears now streaming down her cheeks.
We have to do something!
The white unicorn leaned away from Twilight, taken aback by the outburst. She felt a pang of guilt, quickly shrugged it off with anger of her own. She rose, muzzle just inches in front of the other unicorns.
And what shall we do, Twilight Sparkle? Shall we just go now, march up to Queen Nyx, and, I say it, ground her?
She fumed, pressing forward. Twilight, for her part, leaned back, away, surprised and intimidated by this sudden conviction.
Why, when as far as I know, everything is fine! Perhaps it's just the fact that the princesses aren't ruling. Well, why would their command be any more legitimate than another alicorn who can control the heavens? Why should we bow to rulers not even here, when there is one who seems just as kind, if not a bit more stern? Honestly, Twilight, what would we even do? Banish her as we did from Luna? Where would she even go?
Rarity wasn't so sure she was trying to admonish Twilight or confront herself with her own words, but she was far too livid to really care once their dear friend was now in tears.
Would you really do that to your own daughter, even after she avenged your death? Built a monument in your name? Nay, Ponyville, the scion, the glowing example of ponykind!
Twilight's back was against the wall now. Her retreat from the element of generosity, even if she was not any more, put her there. She cowered under the broadest of questions, trembling and sobbing openly.
I don't know. Please, Rarity, I don't even know why I'm here!
Rarity suddenly felt more awful than before. She pressed up close to Twilight, holding her close and sighing softly.
Shh. It is all right, darling. I'm sorry. I simply do not know what came over me to be so cruel.
That was a lie. She knew all too well why. Her dreams, her career had been threatened. And not only that, but her integrity as a lady. Perhaps she had been too quick to accept Queen Nyx as a ruler. But that was for Twilight's sake as much as her own, hadn't it?
Yes, it hasn't been a reign of terror after all. Everything's been fine. The heralds have been very forthcoming with information, and if Ponyville's success is any indication, why would they lie?
Doubt bit at the back of her mind. Propaganda was always possible, after all. But those thoughts grew weaker and weaker as he comforted her friend. She allowed herself a smile, hoping it would comfort Twilight.
Come now, dear. I'm sure you're very tired. After all, it's quite late. We could both do with some sleep.
Twilight sighed, nodding her head quietly.
In the morning, I need to see her.
Rarity beamed, helping her friend to her bed. Twilight slipped up into it, Rarity soon to follow. The lavender unicorn laid herself on the far left of the bed, not bothering to move the covers.
Of course, dear. You have no idea how elated she will be to see you. After all, you are her mother,
Twilight forced back a sob, as she remembered her own little Nyx. Was this really another world? Another reality? Or were her happy memories a dream? Was this all some sort of sick joke by the universe? Rarity, seeing her tortured friend's expression, gently rubbed at Twilight's shoulders.
Come now, dear. I'm truly sorry for my outburst. Everything will seem much better in the morning. You'll see. Now, I'll let you have my bed to yourself. You seem like you could use the space.
Before she could leave, though, Twilight turned and quickly shook her head.
No! I mean...
She took a deep breath.
I really want someone to be here with me. I can't be alone right now.
Rarity blinked, then nodded, lying down herself and hugging her friend to her.
Oh, Twilight, everything will be fine. With you here, everything will go back to normal. I'm sure of it.
The white unicorn closed her eyes and began to doze off. Rainbow Dash was disgusted. She wasn't sure what was going on, all this. The Pegasus wasn't really in her comfort zone when it came to academic things like magic. And the idea of another world, parallel to her own, just gave her a headache. What she got from it, aside from that confusion, was that someone had decided their mess was her problem and dragged her into it. Away from her life. Away from her Applejack. As far as she was concerned, the one in front of her could go rot at the moment. You know what? Never mind. Hey, if I'm going to help you, I hope that big heart guy or whatever comes back and kicks your flank! Applejack winced, slightly panicking. This wasn't the way it was supposed to go. This wasn't the plan. Dash wasn't supposed to hate her. The filly shook her head and glared Dress in the eye. Look here, Sugar Cube! Don't you call me that! You're not my Applejack! You're not my friend! You're a jerk who's ruining my life! You've only been here for an hour at the most! You! Don't you dare! You're a traitor! That set the cyan-colored Pegasus off like no one else. Dash pounced at the farm mare. If looks could kill, the expression on her face might not have only polished Applejack off, but her immediate family as well. As it was, hooves hurt enough. Even Vardee couldn't hit as nearly as hard as the Earth Pony. Applejack hit the dirt on her back. Rainbow Dash gave a sock right in the nose with a full hoof, before the yellow-orange mare kicked her off. Falling to her hooves, Applejack spat some blood from her mouth to the side. Now just pissed off as the Pegasus. Fine! You all might just hire yourself? Let's do this thing! I'm taking you back with me, even if I gotta... She didn't get it out, before she saw a hind leg coming to her face. AJ reared up, though that only caused her to get hit in the chest. She stumbled, but didn't fall. She was done with words now. The orange pony slipped behind the Pegasus before she could kick out at Applejack again. The farm filly banging onto Dash's tail. The Pegasus kicked wildly for those offending jaws, though not a single hoof found its mark before the Earth Pony yanked Dash into the air over her friend and swung her down in its hurt. Dash groaned and tried to rise up, only for 2 forehooves to slam down her ribcage. Not enough to break anything, but Luna's flank if it didn't hurt! Ugh! She winced, shuddering. Applejack had a definite advantage. She wasn't as tired as Dash was, as he was far stronger. Should have gotten in the air as soon as the fight began, she thought, as Applejack reared again. Hit and run. Well, hindsight. Stop! Okay! She wheezed, struggling to find a way to get air in her lungs that wouldn't burn like Celestia's song. I get the message. Applejack felt a strange urge of triumph break through, and reached the hoof down, offering to Rainbow Dash as though it were a peace treaty. Come on, Sugar Cube. Just help us out, and y'all be back on your way home before you can say Appaloosa. Dash grunted, not just out of lingering anger, but because talking hurt now. AJ just shrugged. Sorry, but you kind of brought it on yourself. You're the element of loyalty. You gotta act like it, RD. Little Pony saw her glare, and Applejack returned it. Let me fight us. Gotta act like it, 'cause we need you. We can't do this without you. Dax felt a bit of pride at that, and smiled. Maybe this pony was more like Applejack than knew than she thought. Okay, but you gotta swear we're going back home after this is over. Applejack solemnly went through the motions. Grasp my hoe or hold the fly. Stick a coke kick in my eye. Dax tried not to laugh. After all, the pinky promise was serious business. Now, let's get going before tall, dark, and jockey mule shows up again. So one Earth pony and one very sore Earth Pegasus headed for the apple orchard. That was where she and Trixie were going to meet up when they were done. Ponyville was too dangerous right now for more than one pony estimate odds. I sure hope you know what you're doing, Trixie. Don't break my heart now, darling. Trixie ducked behind a water barrel, swearing under her breath as she hid from passing guards. They were in a rush, which could only mean they were looking for someone. Her and Applejack, of course. When they passed, she ducked behind a general store barrel that was set against, exploring her options.
I'm still not sure which friend Twilight is with, and
She cast her eyes down the street, the unicorn sighing, more guards coming from the distance.
obviously I can't check every one.
She bit the sugar cube corner already, but no one had answered her frantic knocking. She hadn't been surprised, though. At this hour they would be asleep, and she was told that Pinky lived on the second floor. She was just about to try tapping on the window, when she suspected belonged to the baker. But that was when she heard heavy hoof falls coming her way. She sighed with disappointment, and wanted a safe distance from Ponyville, before she dared to turn and glare back at his shape, as though itself had offended her.
Now, I could go back to the orchard. After all, this is getting far too dangerous, and I can't possibly move along unhindered.
She looked at the hoof to begin her walk there, feeling far too tired to try teleporting again. But then she hung her head. The idea of Applejack's disappointment in her for failure was too great a metaphor.
No! I can't leave without that blasted Twilight!
Trixie needed a place to lay low. Out in the open was too exposed, Everfree too wild, and Ponyville would be swarmed with guards. She already saw lights turning on in the houses, as the residents of the once small town began to awake, likely wondering what in the name of Celestia was happening.
But where could I go?
She thought long and hard of Applejack's briefings of the town and its layout. Every important resistance leader needed to know such things. Thus the case coming here was inevitable. Eventually, her mind settled on a particular location. Fleur-sized house. It was far enough from Ponyville that it could easily be hidden there. If the guards came looking, the Pegasus would hide her. She was sympathetic to the rebellion, even if she would not act openly for it. Trixie began the long trek around Ponyville. She had to go through the orchard to get there. That was fine. Plenty of covered, and hopefully she could meet Applejack and tell her the plan. The Black Stallion stood at the door that led to his queen's bedroom. He felt a bit apprehensive about waking her, to be honest. For one, to wake a slumbering goddess, they must either be a fool or have something vitally important to say. He prayed disqualified as the latter, and gave a few solid knocks. There was no sound within for a moment, so he removed the hoof to repeat the motion. Before he could, however, a single word broke the silence. What? Flat and annoyed, the voice nonetheless retained its smooth, proud tone. Wildheart was oddly comforted by that. It hadn't, after all, been a sound, nor had the door flown open, or any number of things his imagination would tell him were definite signs he was about to die.
My queen, I have some very urgent news.
More silence followed, then a deep groan of frustration. Wildheart! Do you ever sleep? Dear Pony smiled to himself. There was a definite reason to respect his goddess, but why fear? He explained it as some deep, primal thing, perhaps. A mortal before a goddess should of course be terrified. Feeling brave enough to continue, he spoke again. Your Majesty, my Samia is not merely a matter of note. He was interrupted by demands of patience.
It can wait until I have slept. Go take your medication and rest!
It was Wildheart's turn to be annoyed, overriding any trepidation he'd had the moment before. He stopped the forehoof, though it was on carpet, very audible, and turned to leave.
Very well.
Very well. Then if the matter of seeing one rainbow dash alive as well is less important, I say good night. Good night, God.
The door swung open, interrupting him again as the light struck the room on the wall inside. There stood his queen, larger than he, and far more regal in bearing. Absolute grace and beauty. He allowed himself an odd glance before bowing. She didn't wear armor to bed, and hadn't bothered to put it on before the door had opened, leaving her bare. An expression of shock was on her face, something he hadn't seen often.
What was that you said? I demand a full report at this moment!
Wildheart briefly considered pointing out her earlier argument, but that would have been a waste of time, and more importantly, his. The stallion nodded, rising from his bow.
I was taking a stroll from Ponyville, trying to gather my thoughts, when I noticed the monument to Twilight had been broken into.
Perhaps the wrong thing to start off with. Nightmare Moon's eyes narrowed as her expression came a scowl.
Please, my goddess, this was more than an act of petty vandalism.
She grit her teeth and shook her head, but let him continue.
I noticed tracks leading from the upper window, but only away. Some pony must have teleported in, or flew in. I alerted the guard, then decided to observe until the interlopers returned.
A brow raised on the mare's forehead as she listened, her anger still present, but curiosity was taking over, and amusement at the absurd idea that intruders would return. Wellheart was never exactly bright.
I sighted a familiar pair after a half an hour, Applejack and Trixie. When I confronted them, Trixie fled, and Applejack attacked. I easily subdued her, but was interrupted in my arrest by a rainbow-patterned streak. I was only able to take in a brief instant of the perpetrator's identity, but it was enough.
Nightmare Moon Nyx took her head slowly, her mouth feeling a bit dry. Why was she suddenly afraid of this?
Wildheart, this is truly an impossible thing you can suggest. You can't seriously be expecting a Pegasus has come back from the dead, can you?
Fear had turned to logic, from logic to concern.
Perhaps you truly should go sleep. You must be hallucinating.
This was not what the stallion had expected to hear.
Goddess, please. It's only been 3 moonrises since I last slept.
And that's enough to cause such hallucinations.
But, my queen, Applejack could not simply fly out by her.
My word is final, Wildheart!
The statement was clear, while it was myth in attitude in his arguments. The dangerous tone that suggested punishment for the infraction wasn't there. It was more of a teacher rebuking a student than that of a goddess being outraged at a challenge.
Go to sleep!
The god has already been alerted.
Most likely those two traitors have already fled. But in case they remain, I shall send someone else to capture them. And this Rainbow Dash impersonator!
The stallion dropped his head and bowed.
Yes, my goddess.
He strode away, feeling more defeated, and perhaps a bit doubtful. Maybe he had been seeing things. The mare watched as he turned to his quarters, halfway down the hall, and shook her head.
Perfect cut. I know you've been listening on this. I want you to find them. Take them alive if possible.
She didn't take long to think over the order, and quickly added,
And mostly unhurt. None of your shenanigans.
A dark pink-coated pony stepped out of another door, pouting at both being out, and her fun denied. Her mane was purple with a cyan highlight, and was wild and unkempt, despite being brushed back. The Pegasus' wings were nearly constantly unfurled back, so they fluttered every now and then, seemingly at random.
But Nyxie...
Not now, Perfect. I'm going to bed now. You have your orders. The Queen stepped back into her room and closed the door. The Pegasus drew herself down in a pout, legs curled under her. Eventually she rose up, but only she had a thought that made her perk up again.
Well, she didn't say anything about accidents.
She grinned, and mimicked the apologetic, droning tone of a city guard. I'm sorry, ma'am, but sometimes these things happen. Falling to her back, Perfect's legs kicked into the air while she giggled. It was a happy sound, but happy for all the wrong reasons.
Might as well get to it then. This could be all kinds of fun.
The black anklets on her front left and rear hind legs jangled as he galloped down the hall, thinking of all the wonderful accidents her quarries would have before bringing them back. She let off another cheerful but disturbed chortle as he planned her first stop. You know, Nightmare Moon.
Yes, dear Rita. I just realized, even with Nyx's appearance here, you kind of had some of the second most appearances of any of the characters on this show. Really, who was the first? That would be me, Miss Moon. Oh, the mayor.